It's been a while since I've done a 5G video, so I figured, especially with the new iPhone 12 getting released yesterday, that I should probably go ahead and do one. Let's go ahead and start with the iPhone 12 getting 5G. Obviously, Apple is way late to the game here, which is no surprise since they were also late to the game on 4G as well. Samsung and other Android phones have already implemented 5G services into their phones for more than a year now. Apple is late to the game for probably two reasons, at least that I can see. Number one would be simply they had a legal battle with Qualcomm, which they settled, and now Qualcomm is the 5G modem of choice for Apple, for now. Apple did buy up Intel's 5G modem business, so they will most likely have their own 5G modem in the coming years. Secondly, Apple was late to the 5G game because of strategy. If you look at the earlier Android phones with the 5G modems that they were using, they were limited to speed and capacity. I won't dive too much into the details about that because I've spoken about the X50, X55, and X60 Qualcomm modems in a previous 5G video. So waiting for this fall to release the 5G capabilities on the iPhone allowed for Apple to get the latest and greatest modem, take advantage of the fastest 5G speeds with downloads up to 3.5 gigabits per second. And so I think that it was a smart move for them to wait, just simply because of they got the better modem that has more capabilities and they weren't just pushing something out just to have something out there. Now, as a side note, I've tried to do some research, but I've not found which Qualcomm modem that Apple is using. It could very well be a more advanced X55, or it could potentially be an X60 that wasn't supposed to be released until 2021. I haven't found any concrete data supporting either modem at this time, so I am kind of curious as to which one that Apple is using. So what does Apple coming to the 5G game mean? Well, first off, it forces Android phones to up their games with their modems and speed capabilities. It also allows Apple iPhone users to utilize 5G in their areas, but it also holds iPhone carriers to a higher standard because, as we all know, Apple's pretty picky about who they work with, so if they don't meet Apple standards, they'll probably be dropped. And overall, it just creates more competition for 5G phones. More competition is usually better for the customers. So do I think that we should rush out and buy a brand new iPhone 12 with 5G? Just like with the Android phones, I think it's kind of pointless to rush and buy it for 5G capabilities. Sure, Apple takes full advantage of Verizon's 5G network, but not everyone has Verizon and not everybody has 5G, which we'll talk about that in just a moment. However, I think that the newest iPhones and the newest Samsungs are the way to go if you do want a 5G phone. They're two of the three best phones on the market. They have proven quality, and overall, I think they would be the best choice, not just for 5G, but for some of the other capabilities of the phones themselves. The biggest con of both of the phones is simply the cost. So let's talk about the three main carriers in the United States. As far as AT&T and their 5G updates, on their website, they show nationwide 5G, just like the other carriers. However, none of them actually have full 5G coverage across the whole United States. From what I understand, as far as AT&T, they have at least one 5G spot in every state, but they don't cover any state fully yet with any of their 5G technologies. Remember, AT&T has the millimeter wave and the sub-6 gigahertz networks. AT&T also has what they call 5G Plus, which is the super fast millimeter wave 5G technology, and it's only available in certain spots across 15 states in the United States. They are pushing to make that more cities by the end of the year. Their standard 5G is the sub-gigahertz technology that is a lot easier to deploy, but not quite as fast. And then they have something called 5GE. Now that's 5G evolution, which is not 5G. It's just super fast 4G LTE advanced that they relabeled for advertising or whatever the latest excuse was. But in all reality, it's pretty much just false advertisement. Either way, they're rolling out as fast as they can, just like the other two big companies. Just like AT&T, Verizon's nationwide 5G is not really nationwide. Instead, what they've done is they've deployed their sub 6 gigahertz, they've deployed it into large areas, and then they've got their ultra wideband, which is the millimeter wave, that they've deployed in over 50 cities, and they've got those marked on their maps. With that being said, Verizon's website map may not be up to date because they are rapidly moving forward with pushing out their slower 5G bandwidth on top of their 4G LTE towers. And so right now, since they just released their nationwide 5G yesterday, they may not have everything quite up to date yet. But on the plus side, they are reaching around 200 million people with their current 5G setup between their ultra band and their standard 5G. T-Mobile bragged about being the very first nationwide 5G cellular provider in the United States. As you already know from my previous videos, T-Mobile merged with Sprint and is using Sprint's mid-level 5G network as a way to expand their lower level or lower band 5G network, which is known as the sub-6 gigahertz network. T-Mobile launched their mid-band 2.5 gigahertz 5G network in over 80 cities. Again, that was with the help of merging or purchasing Sprint. They are making a huge push this year to upgrade more than 1,000 cell sites each month, which is rapid, especially with the whole COVID thing going on. But when you're comparing maps, I would have to say you should be cautious of T-Mobile and Verizon. Back when 4G LTE was the next big thing, Verizon fluffed a lot of their maps. I know that for a fact because they claimed that they had 4G LTE where I lived at the time, when in fact they actually didn't. Now T-Mobile is fluffing their maps by comparing their mid-range 5G map to Verizon's millimeter wave 5G map, which are vastly different technologies that are rolled out at different speeds, and so it's not really apples to apples. And so their comparison is horribly wrong, which obviously every company, even AT&T, does things like this to try to make themselves look better than their competitors. However, you got to be really careful when it comes to cellular data because you need to make sure that you have data where you need it. With all that being said, the fact that T-Mobile used their low-band network combined with Sprint's mid-band network, or mid-range, they have the most 5G coverage out of the big three, no matter what technology they're using. One last thing to cover, while AT&T was initially the fastest 5G network, Verizon has made a push and appears to be faster based on their own claims and tests. As far as third-party tests, I'm excited to see how their tests are comparing the two companies. They are both faster than T-Mobile, but I'm kind of curious as to which one is actually the fastest, because from what I've seen by third parties, AT&T is in fact the faster of the two, but that kind of varies because in some spots Verizon's faster, but AT&T still has the fastest top speed. But again, in a controlled environment, Verizon has the fastest 5G network. So should be cool to watch these two kind of battle it out over the next couple of years as their 5G millimeter wave networks continue to grow. A few things to note about speeds. The millimeter wave, which is the fastest, is harder to find because you've got to go into big cities and you've got to go into certain spots of those big cities. And so speed tests can be harder to run and run accurately on those. The millimeter wave network is, like I said, the fastest, but it doesn't spread quite as far and doesn't really penetrate through any of the walls. So when you're in a building, you're not going to get the 5G millimeter wave network. What you're going to get is the sub-6 low band, or you're going to get the 2.5 gigahertz mid band, and those are going to be what gets through into the buildings as your 5G network. Mid-band and low-band networks, they spread further, like I said, but they're also built upon or on top of the 4G LTE networks, which allows them to, which allows the companies to actually convert their existing towers in a little bit easier, spread their network a little bit faster, and keep building their 5G network while working on bringing the millimeter wave out to more people. you're more likely to get the mid and low band networks in your area, especially over the next couple of years, because like I said, millimeter wave, it's harder to build out, it's more expensive, it takes more nodes, which means it takes more money, and so on and so forth. So for the next few years, most people are only going to get the mid and low band, depending on if you have AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon. So my suggestion when you're looking at all these speeds is to base your speed expectations off of the low or mid-band speeds in your area. I wouldn't get too excited about AT&T's proven 1.8 gigabits per second download or Verizon's claimed 4 gigabits per second download speeds, because those are on the super fast millimeter wave networks, and Verizon's test was actually in a controlled environment under perfect conditions. AT&T's was in a real world environment tested by a third party, but still those expectations are not something that you should really expect in your area, at least not anytime soon, for most of the United States, unless you live in a large city. Even the iPhone 12's 3.5 gigabit per second test was performed under perfect conditions and should not be expected to see that as a typical download speed in the real world. Overall, each company is adding millimeter wave tech to large cities, spreading their low and mid-range technologies to larger areas, and moving forward to become the first full nationwide 5G provider. There's nothing new to inform you about with that, because it's all kind of the same stuff over the last 6 months. Really the biggest news is the newest iPhone. And even though COVID has slowed down these companies, they're still expanding rapidly, especially T-Mobile. It's actually really impressive to watch how fast they're expanding. But really, there's not a whole lot that's new with their networks. As far as phones, the iPhone 12 is the latest 5G phone to enter the race, and it appears to have once again raised the bar. And for those who are still concerned about 5G health concerns and health issues, I've said before that it's really nothing to worry about, and I will stand by that decision. No, I'm not a licensed doctor. Yes, I have done my research. If you want to see some of my reasoning and some of the facts that I've used, check out my other 5G videos. They cover more of that than what I'm going to cover in this video. So that's all that I have for the 5G updates. As always, thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe.